Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Miami-based New York City tenor saxophonist Jack Branfield. He opened up about his new 2021 CD, I'll Never Be the Same, and his life in music. He's a passionate musician who brings his own style in carrying the torch for the interpreters of the Great American Songbook. He has a BM in Jazz Studies from Michigan State University and studied around some heavy cats up there, and is currently a scholarship recipient from the Frost School of Music at the University of Miami. Things have just begun for Jack, yet he has some mileage to give to that jazz audio ride, with so much more to come. Enjoy the story.
Hey, thanks for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. Right on. Me too, man. So your latest 2021 CD, I'll Never Be the Same. I guess that's kind of a epitaph for 2020, I would think.
Yeah, a little bit, definitely. It also has to do a lot with the experience I had as an undergraduate student at Michigan State University. I went there, and the reason I went there actually was because of the outstanding faculty. I'm not sure how much you know about it, but the great Rodney Whitaker, amazing bass player, he runs the program. And as far as what I know and what I understand, he had an amazing career in New York City, and then he decided to go after his career. He wanted to move back to Michigan and create a jazz program, sort of have roots in the Detroit jazz scene. And he brought some of the greatest musicians with him to teach full time out there. So I got to connect with him and Randy Napoleon, who became two of my biggest mentors. And over the 4 years, I spent countless hours with them working on all kinds of things. And so I'll Never Be the Same. It's sort of the title. It's sort of a tribute to how I feel after, going through that mentorship under them with 4 years. And I made the record after I graduated, and it was sort of a lot of thinking like, I'm not going to have those guys anymore because I'm moving on. I'm moving from Michigan. But, just sort of the appreciation I have for what they taught me and what I learned from them.
I will never forget a story Rodney told me one time, and sometimes I forget who told me this, but when you mentioned his name in Michigan, I totally remember this. All right. So he went to New York, and he finally got to see his first live jazz show there, and I think it was George Coleman. And he said that it was so mind-blowing that when he walked up and he had to go upstairs to get out onto the street, that he completely 100% fell to the ground, fainted.
Wow.
He just totally went out cold. And every time I think about that, I think, because I haven't been to one of those big clubs there in New York, and I keep thinking when I finally get to that point, I might pull a Rodney and do the same thing.
Right. Oh, man.
You know?
Yeah. I understand that. They are amazing. It's definitely it's a different kind of experience, and it's an amazing experience. I grew up in New York City, so I was really lucky to get to sort of go to those clubs as a young kid and hear some really great musicians. And then eventually, a little older in high school, I started sitting in at some of those places with, a few musicians who I became friends with. They'd always have me come up on stage, and sometimes, I just sounded awful, or I was super nervous a lot of times. But, those memories, those experiences, I'll never forget them. And, they keep, those are the kind of things that inspire you to practice harder the next day and keep on learning this music. So, I love growing up in New York, and those clubs are amazing.
So talk to me a little bit about, the timing of this. We obviously are in the middle of a pandemic. There's a lot going on. Was there anything about the timing? This almost seems like since you can't perform live, this is kind of a good way of doing it.
Honestly, timing had everything to do with this record, and it worked out. COVID has been awful in so many ways, of course, but sort of actually for me, there were some positives, and this record was one of them. So I graduated from Michigan State University in May of 2020. So my last semester is when COVID started, and then, lockdown happened, of course. And so I decided around almost a year ago exactly, late March, April, that I was going to move to Miami, where I'm right now, and get my master's at the University of Miami. And that decision I made because of COVID. I had originally wanted to move back to New York City and, just try to play as much as I can and get into the clubs and work with some of my favorite musicians. But with COVID, like New York City wasn't going to really be happening for a while, and it's still, not really happening. So I took the opportunity to move down to University of Miami. But before that, I had my lease in Michigan till like the end of August. So I was like, okay, nothing's happening in the world. The world's on standstill. I'm just going to stay in Michigan, practice, and then, I'll move to Miami. And it had always been my dream once, it was always a plan of mine to do a record, sort of after I graduated Michigan State. And then, I hadn't necessarily worked it all out. But it was something I really wanted to do, something I really wanted to do for a while. And then I was in Michigan just, hanging out this summer, just, as COVID was, we were all in lockdown. I was just quarantining, getting ready to move to Miami. And I kind of realized, like, well, Rodney Whitaker and Randy Napoleon, two, like, my mentors and two of, like, the greatest musicians in the world, are probably doing the exact same thing I'm doing, like, locked down in East Lansing, Michigan, with not a lot of going on. And there's actually a really great recording studio in town that all the musicians, all the cats at MSU use. And so I just called them up and I sort of proposed the idea to them. Hey, you guys want to make a record? I'm assuming you probably don't have a lot going on. And it worked out. And so it really worked out perfectly. So we got in there, like, it was July 31st. We got in the studio and we spent the whole day. We spent like 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., recorded all the tracks, and it was like one of the best days of my life. Just like being in the studio with those guys. It was amazing.
So talk to me about your childhood growing up in New York and how jazz became your life.
I mean, first off, growing up in New York I'm so fortunate. Like, growing up, if you're in love with jazz, there's really no better place to be. And I was really lucky to go to LaGuardia High School for the Arts, which is sort of like the premier high school for like the arts, like performing arts high school in New York City. People know it as like the Fame School because it got famous from the movie Fame. And there I went because I liked to play sax in middle school and I was good enough to get in. But I really fell in love with jazz sort of like my freshman, sophomore year in high school because I got connected with a man named Kevin Blanc, an amazing trumpeter, and the band director, the jazz director at LaGuardia High School. And me and him, we became really close really quickly, and he introduced me to, so much jazz. He had like a music collection. I remember we'd go in his office and on his computer, his iTunes collection of music was like thousands and thousands of records, and he had everything. And like a bunch of us would always eat our lunch like in his office, and we just listen to tunes, we'd listen to records, and then we'd, sometimes we just listen, sometimes we'd all take out our horns and play over them. And it was just, I was really exposed to a lot of music, and I think that's really important for me, just to be exposed to like some of the greatest jazz. And we listen to everything. We listen to stuff from the 20s. We listen to all the hot 5, hot 7, Louis Armstrong stuff. We listen to all the big band. I mean, I listen to Dorsey, I listen to Claude Thornhill, Count Basie, Duke Ellington, all the 30 stuff, and all the bop. Like, really, we listen to everything, all the bebop, then the 50s, all the Miles stuff, and then all the more of the hard bop, a lot of the Blue Note records. Checked out, like, just really, checked out a lot of jazz, and it got me sort of listening to a lot. I think the biggest thing for me as a kid, especially when I was in like high school age, was how much listening I did, because I was just obsessed with listening. Like, I would find a record out at school, and then like I'd go home and listen to that record more, and then like find like online like related records. So I just find more music and just listen a lot. And that was really it for me. That was really huge for me. And then as I got older in high school, and was sort of like, when I had a later curfew and everything, I could like start going to the clubs, and I did that. I had a bunch of like friends, and we all loved jazz, and we would go to the clubs. We'd go to Fat Cat a lot. But like Fat Cat, we could only go on certain nights, I remember, because some nights you had to be 21, or we would go to Dizzy's. I was actually in the Jazz Lincoln Center youth big band in high school, my junior and senior year of high school, and which was really great. I mean, I could go on about that as well, but one thing in particular that was so great about being in that program is that they let me go to Dizzy's, which is a great club at Jazz Lincoln Center, for free whenever I want. And that was really important because I would go see like some of the best live music, and And I didn't have to like worry about putting together $30 every time I wanted to go, because I could go for free, and it was amazing. It was just like I would get out of school and just decide most nights I'd be like, all right, I'm going to go to Disney tonight, check out who's playing. And I stopped looking at the calendar and see who's playing, because I just knew it would be someone great, and I heard a lot of music that way. Because listening to music, I think, is important, but listening to live music is also really important, and I was able to do that definitely later in my high school years. So yeah, growing up in New York City, in love with jazz, I was really fortunate to have that experience. And yeah, it was great. I loved it.
When you wake up every day as a musician, what do you look forward to the most? Like being a creator and being able to be in that position of making something.
Wow. It changes every day. Like sometimes, like, sort of without a lot of gigs right now because of Corona, like, and this might be a good thing. It's become sort of like I wake up in the morning and I think about like sort of what I want to practice, like what I want to learn, like recently I've been playing. My new thing is I've been playing along to Relax with Miles Davis, that Prestige record with Olio and It Could Happen to You and Woody and You, and like so like I wake up in the morning and I get sort of excited about like what I'm going to be working on. Just sort of like I like to treat practicing as like definitely a lot of technical practice, getting my stuff together, but also sort of just like exploring and learning. A lot of like curiosity goes along with my practicing, so it's like I get excited about that. Sort of learning more music, and just getting better, like learning more about this music, like understanding this language, how to hear this language, how to listen to this language, how to like create with this language, how to speak with this language. So definitely a lot of that when I wake up in the mornings. But I will say I'm in Miami now, and there's been more gigs. I mean, for the first time since like almost a year ago, I'm starting to play gigs again because there's outdoor venues and stuff is definitely more open and Corona safe than it is in New York. Like I've been doing a lot of outdoor gigs, and now I'm sort of getting back into that mode where I'm like waking up in the morning and I'm just excited to like go play live music, like create something that an audience will enjoy to hear, like. I've been playing with some great musicians down here, and I wake up in the morning and excited to like create live music with like other musicians, and that's a whole other thing. And it's awful that COVID sort of took away live music for so many reasons, but I think playing with other people is like the source of inspiration for musicians that just can't be matched by like just practicing alone. And you need it, and it's great that it's coming back, and I hope it continues to come back. So yeah, I mean. I guess that's sort of my two things I think about when I wake up in the morning.
You mentioned Rodney, and there's been a lot of other people, a lot of big players you've been around already. What have you learned from these legends and luminaries that have kind of resonated with you as you have kind of kicked your career off?
Oh man, so much. So from Rodney, so I spent a lot of time with Rodney in class situations, in one-on-one situations playing, and also as a band director when I was in MSU's Jazz Orchestra 1, and Rodney tells a lot of stories, and he tells a lot of stories about like experiences of jazz musicians and experiences he's had. It's sort of just a lot. I've taken a lot about like the history of this music and sort of what is important in this music. We spent a year in the band playing Duke Ellington's music, and he's so well versed and knowledgeable on Duke Ellington's music, and like we played these charts, and honestly, we spent a lot of time working out like notes and all the technical stuff, but we spent a lot of time as a band with Rodney just talking about sort of what this music meant, like what Duke meant when he was writing some of this music, like how he composed and how he composed for his band so specifically, and there was he was getting specific sounds that he was hearing and wanted his band to create, like, I'm blanking right now, but some either like some of the songs, like, the trumpets are going to be like a train whistle, the saxophones are supposed to be like, like a chant or something, and we really talked about what this music meant, and it gave me a lot of insight into like how to perform, how to play this music. We talked about swing a lot. I play one duo with him, or a lot of times trio with him with a drummer in his office, and we talk about like how to swing, like what it really means to like really create momentum and propelling force, and how to swing. It was a lot of just sort of like taking his stories and just catching off of his vibe. He wasn't ever super like critical with like exact critiques, like technicality wise, but it was a lot of just sort of like bouncing off of sort of just his essence and his like innate amazing ability to swing. So I got that a lot from Rodney. From Randy, who I spent a ton of hours. I mean, me and Randy, we became really, really close. I spent so many hours in his office just working on songs with him, and we worked on playing like songs like a lot of American Songbook tunes, and really like being true to songs, like playing melodies exactly how they were written. We looked at scores. We looked at a lot of like Cole Porter scores, George Gershwin scores, a lot of lyrics, like making sure that when I play a melody, like obviously the saxophone can't produce lyrics, but we would work on like making sure I played each syllable of the lyrics. So to play this song truly, we talked a lot about harmony, like what chords are best for the songs, and we would get into it. We would spend like 2 hours just on one song, like taking apart the melody, listening to recordings, like how other people play the melodies, how they play the melody in the original recording, and then we'd like, spend another hour just working on the chords and what chords go best with the melody because of the melody note, and what chords you can play when you're soloing that don't work with the melody, and how you can use these different sounds. And we worked on time. We worked on like how to swing as well, how to like keep good time. So with Randy, it was definitely a lot of technicality stuff. I don't know if you ever met Randy, but he's probably the nicest person in the world. And he has a great way of just, at the same time being nice, being like so blunt. And he would just tell me when I was playing bad, tell me when I was wrong. And it was great. It was exactly what I needed. And it was amazing.
So everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, fans, that you're living your life.
Right.
Who do you think you are?
Oh man. Well, I don't know. I don't. That's a hard question. Definitely something I've been thinking about recently, actually. Like, I think I don't know if there's an answer. I don't know if I can define it. I want to be a lot of things. I listen to like all the greatest saxophone players, and I want to be able to create what they create. Ultimately, I just want to do what I want to be able to create music at a high level. And I hope that people enjoy what I have to create. The amazing thing about jazz is it's such an expressive music. Everyone who plays jazz at a high level, like all the greats, like they have their own voice, and I don't think it's luck that people just happen to like their voice. And there's a lot of reasons why people like their voice, probably because they played with great time, they played with great melodic ideas, they had great rhythm, great phrasing, all great intonation, all these things, and that's why we practice so much. But at the same time, they also had like they were being themselves, they were creating their own voice, and that's why people like them. And I just want to do the same. I want to have all my stuff together, all my technical stuff together, so that I can just sort of create what I want to create, express what I want to express, and I guess hope that people like it. I think that the best musicians are the most honest and genuine, definitely in music, and I only ever want, that's all I ever want to do, is just be genuine with what I have to share and what I have to create. I can't really do anything else but just be honest, and I guess hope that people like it. And I sort of take that I take that into other aspects of life. I'm just gonna always be myself, and I think as long as you're always genuine and honest, all you can do is hope that people like you. But like jazz, the most important thing is listening to other people. I'm not sure if that exactly answers your question, but I definitely don't have that answer figured out yet.
No, that was a great answer, man. That's a great answer, and I saved the roughest one for last. So, Jack, thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I appreciate it, man.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Michigan, Miami, New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Jack for his time, energy, and music. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
jazz.